So it was a wrong interpretation of the historical record, and especially it was just wrong economic analysis. Right? The neoliberals, as they emerged in the 1930s, hadn't learned their economics. And if you look at those people who adopted, right, came up with this new term, hardly any one of them had an education in classical economics or knew something about the Austrian school. Right? They were raised on a different school of thought that was dominant in Germany in those days, which was the historical school. The historical school stressed the study of empirical conditions, right, and claimed that out of the study of many case conditions and so on, you could develop more general regularities, which was a big error. So from then on, well, the neoliberals first didn't have a big influence, but they came to have a big influence after World War II because they played a role in the organization of the first international libertarian organizations. And among those first libertarian organizations were the Mont Pelerin Society in particular, in various liberal institutes, especially on the European continent. So the line stressed by the Mont Pelerin Society, so in the Mont Pelerin Society, then you had a confrontation between the neoliberals on the one hand, people like Wilhelm Röpke, Alfred Müller-Armack, and others, and then the representatives of the Austrian school, Friedrich von Hayek and Ludwig von Mises on the other hand. So it was not a unified front against the forces of socialism, but Mises and Hayek realized perfectly well, and Mises much more than Hayek, that ultimately the neoliberals had a completely wrong conception about the conditions of liberty in a well-ordered society, and therefore fought these conceptions. Mises never called himself a neoliberal, and he was a liberal of the old sort, right? The 19th century type liberalism, by which he meant essentially the type of liberalism that could be traced back to Adam Smith and the classical economists, not the type of liberalism that could be traced back to the French Enlightenment. So in conclusion, and I will stop here and give some more time to our discussion, and we have to see that our current struggles are in continuity of a century-long evolution. Right? We're not in a unique historical situation. Of course, it's unique in several respects, but by and large, we are leading today in all countries the same struggle that has been led over centuries. Yet the forces of good, to which of course we belong, which define the desired ideal state of society, a free society, a well-ordered society, in terms of justice, at the center of which is private property, with the help of economic arguments that have been developed in the past 200 years, and which stresses, therefore, that a society can function without a central enforcer, a monopolist enforcer of property rights. Right? As Professor Hoppes explained, the protection of property rights themselves is part of the well-ordered society, so it has to respect those property rights in itself. So the foundation of a well-ordered society are the moral conceptions that stress the respect of property rights, and the consequence is also respect of property rights, because we have here a feedback mechanism, right? By always stressing the central position of property rights, we enforce responsibility, and therefore we cultivate a culture of responsibility at the center of which are property rights. And the greatest enemy in all of this, well, of course, we could say, make things easy and say, well, the greatest enemy is the state, right? It's coercive government that destroys social order, that impoverishes us. But ultimately, the greatest enemy is not government itself. The greatest enemies are our wrong conceptions of what true liberty is and what violations of liberty is, what the foundations of justice are, and what the foundations of material wealth are. So we have to, first of all, clarify the ideas for ourselves, and then use this to convince others, that is, and spread our views of society by, as being part of a civil society, that is, by respecting property rights. And this has been done very successfully, as I experienced personally. I'm not that old. I mean, I'm about 20 years younger than Professor Klein, but even in the past 15 years, I've seen enormous progress in all countries which I've traveled for the cause of liberty, and which can rely on these powerful ideas that we've heard already expressed at this conference, about which we will learn more tomorrow. And I think in Brazil, you have now the second Austrian seminar, or it will be the second one of many more to come. And it's clear that these ideas, I have no doubt about this, that these ideas will steamroll this country, right, exponentially. At the beginning slope, right? In about 10 years or so, you'll be at 10% of the voter potential, and then in another 30 years, you'll have the majorities. That was the case of the classical liberals too, right? A true revolutionary, and I have 3 more minutes, okay, a true revolutionary can be recognized by the fact that he says something that is not acceptable at first to the majority of his citizens. That was the case of Adam Smith. He said unheard of things. He said, the cause of our wealth is not inflation, it's not the creation of money, it's not spending, it's not the price level, it's not the stabilization of the price level. The true causes of our wealth are capital accumulation, savings, a frugal life. Then all politicians at the time said, oh, are you crazy? We're saving? You mean not spending? Right? And of course they were not open to this kind of ideas, but after 60 years they were at the point of being the majority opinion in England. It eventually became majority opinion in other countries as well. Right? And the same thing I expect also to be the case in the 21st century, which I expect to be the century of the cause of liberty. Thank you for your attention.